Hello students, welcome to the channel. In today's video, we look at how commas work around quotations. This is an important question type from punctuation, and recent SAT tests have had questions where you have to determine how the commas would be placed around quotations. So let's look at the rules. So normally commas start and finish quotations. When you have a full quotation from someone, you start the quotation or finish it with a comma. For example, my father said, "You have been studying all evening, take a break." So this is what the father said. And because the son or the daughter is mentioning what the father said, there is a comma here. My father said, comma, "You have been studying all evening, take a break." The teacher said, again, a comma, "All present must submit the assignment." Now, you can also have the comma at the end of the quotation if you present the subject or the speaker at the end. So for example, there are 3 employees who have done outstanding work this month, comma, the supervisor announced. So you see that the quotation marks here will be present whenever you mention that the subject has said something, and the comma would be placed depending on whether the subject comes before the quotation or after the quotation. So here and here, the subject is before the quotation, so I put the comma after the verb. Here, the subject is after the quotation, so I put the comma after the quotation. One more example, criticizing the work of the group, the boss said, "I expected greater rigor." So here I'm just using a modifier before the subject, but the main concept, the main rule stays the same. So this is the general rule for how commas are used around quotations. Now let's look at a particular case. Let's say I have an excerpt. This is an excerpt taken from Guns, Germs and Steel by Jared Diamond. And the excerpt says, "Moriori and Maori history constitutes a brief, small-scale natural experiment that tests how environments affect human societies. Of course, such purposeful experiments cannot be carried out on human societies. Instead, scientists must look for natural experiments in which something similar befell humans in the past." So if you have read this book, you would know that what Diamond speaks about is how societies have evolved over the years, right? He takes an anthropological look at human evolution, and he says it's very hard to study how humans lived thousands of years ago, because the way they lived is not something that is mirrored in how we live today. And yet there are societies, there are primitive societies that have maintained the same way of life over centuries. Societies of indigenous people in corners of the world that have not yet been colonized or that have not yet seen mass human presence, right? So we can study how humans lived thousands of years ago by studying these societies, and that provides us a natural experiment. Because normally when you do an experiment, you have a control group and an experimental group, and you compare the two, right? But you can't do that with human societies, because human societies, you cannot run experiments on them. And so the Maori and Moriori history provides us a way to study human evolution and human changes in a natural setting, right? So let's say a student was asked to write what he inferred from Diamond's quotation. And let's say that this is what the student writes. Diamond speaks of natural experiments that happen without intervention, marking a key difference from controlled experiments conducted in a lab setting. He refers to Moriori and Maori history as one such experiment because it gives clues into what befell humans in the past. Now, what the student has done is that he has explained what Diamond says in his own words, but then towards the end, he has used Diamond's words and he has put them in quotation marks. These words, right? Befell humans in the past. So he starts by explaining the difference between a controlled experiment and a natural experiment. He says that a controlled experiment is one that's conducted in a lab setting, and that is something that you can't do on human society. So we have natural experiments. And then he refers to Moriori and Maori history as one such experiment because it gives clues into what befell humans in the past. So here you notice that because the student has selectively chosen from Diamond's quotation, there is no comma here at this position, right? Because he has used Diamond's quotation within his sentence. And when you do that, you don't put a comma before the quotation. So basically, the idea of a comma before or after a quotation only works when you're quoting the person in full, when you're quoting their entire sentence or their entire speech. But if you are taking some words out of their quotation and using those words in your own sentence to kind of, specify a point, then you don't use commas around the quotation. And this rule is been tested in recent SAT writing section. So let's look at some sample questions. Question 1. Tammany Hall was so powerful and corrupt that the New York Times commented, there is absolutely nothing in the city that is beyond the reach of the insatiable tank. Now, here, I know that the New York Times commented something, so I have a complete quotation here that the author presents. So I definitely need a comma here, right? So option A and option D are out because a comma after commented is needed. The comma after that is wrong, right? Because if I say that Tammany Hall was so powerful and corrupt that the New York Times commented, then that is basically to show this so powerful and corrupt that something happened. Those go together. And this comma here would be not required. So the right answer here is option C. Okay, so that was one kind of question. The other kind of question is what we discussed in the second slide. When the accounting firm Crowe Horwath LLP asked workers what changes they would like to see in the workplace, workers said that dressing casually would help them most with being comfortable, being engaged, and being productive, said Chief People Officer Julie Wood. So here I am a writer who is writing about casual dressing at the workplace, and I have spoken to someone known as Julie Wood, who is the Chief People Officer at this accounting firm. And I have written an article or I have written an essay on how people approach dressing casually at work. And within that essay, I am using Julie Wood's quotation to make a point. So this is my text, right? This is my text, and I've used Julie Wood's quotation selectively to make my point. Workers said that dressing casually would help them most with being comfortable, being engaged, and being productive. So this comma here is not needed, right? Because I'm not quoting Julie Wood in full. I'm only using her quotation in part to make my point. So A is wrong, B is a good answer. Okay, a colon can start a quotation, but only in cases where you use a full quotation, right? For example, my father said, colon, go take a break. But in situations like this, when you are selectively using a quotation, a colon is not needed. And a semicolon is definitely not needed because a semicolon is used between two independent sentences. So here, the right answer is no punctuation. Hope this exercise was useful. If it was, hit like and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comment section what other videos you'd like me to upload. I'll see you guys in a new video soon. Take care. Bye-bye.